This is DRF Race of the Day.
Hi everybody, Mike B here with Sunday's DRF Race of the Day. We're at Aqueduct, race number 8. It's the Busanda. Let's take a look at this field right now. 5 3-year-old fillies. They're going to go 9 furlongs over Aqueduct's main track. The purse is $100,000. A short field in this race, but a couple of interesting 3-year-old fillies. Obviously at this stage of the game here, as we make our way through January, they're all pretty lightly raced. It's sort of a well-matched field here. Chad Brown has the favorite on the outside. The grass is blue, 7-5, shipping in from Laurel after coming up just short in a stakes race around 2 turns at Laurel in her most recent start. Todd Pletcher has 2 horses in here, the 4 Traffic Lane, the 2 Coffee Bar. I suppose they're both contenders. Traffic Lane looks like she'll be the speed in here. Coffee Bar, a very lightly raced New York bred who is exiting a pretty impressive maiden win the last time we saw her. 2 other horses, the 1 Diamond Ore and the 3 Wonderwall, also shipping in from out of town. So horses coming from different directions. You know, a small field, but maybe a lot going on in this race. And it does feel like a couple of different horses you can make cases for in this race. Let's take a look first at the Timeform US pace projection for the race, because they do have Traffic Lane, one of those Pletcher horses, out there on a clear early lead. You can see the blue bar indicating that this race they expect to favor horses on or near the early lead. And listen, Traffic Lane is just supposed to be out there on the lead, I guess. The first time they stretched her out back in October as a 2-year-old, she caught a sloppy track, a race that was rained off the turf. She did show speed, settled for second best in that race. They did get her on turf for her very next start, and that's where her only win so far came. On the grass, she kept up close to the pace, just sort of wore down the horse on the lead at the end and prevailed in there, a race where there was no closing going on. She got the job done. Most recently, Todd switched her back over to the main track. He ran her in a much tougher race, the Grade 2 Demoiselle. It was a sloppy track over this distance, and she was on the lead, made the pace up the backstretch, and got very tired in there against those better horses. She did, however, go a pretty good clip on the lead in that race. I thought she made a very solid pace in there. It almost felt like she was 26-1. She was probably setting up the race there for her stablemate, who was the favorite and who did wind up winning that race. So maybe that was her sole purpose for running in the Demoiselle, but she did go a fast pace in there before she got tired. It doesn't make her good enough to beat this field, and it's not like, you know, she ran some kind of superior race, but it was a much better field than this one. Listen, if she gets loose on the lead here going 9 furlongs, it would be far from a big shock if she was able to wire this field. Not that I particularly like her that much. Let's sort of take a run through the rest of this field really quickly here. The 1 Diamond Ore has some things to recommend her. This is a Tappet half-sister to the great Arrogate. So that's, you know, why you see that $750,000 price tag. I think that's as a weanling there, November 2018. No surprise they paid that kind of money for her, though, with that pedigree. She improved the first time they stretched her out in November at Woodbine and finished a gaining second with a 70 Beyer speed figure last time down at Tampa at the end of December, her dirt debut. And she got the job done in there, only a 57 Beyer, but she did some good things in that race. On the outside the entire way, was able to keep the leaders in range and then drive them down through the stretch. Didn't come back fast, but she ran fine in that race. I guess it's worth pointing out that she ran without Lasix in that spot. And, you know, seeing how these stakes races in New York are going to be run without Lasix, perhaps that's an advantage for her in this race. You know that she doesn't necessarily need it. She's going to have to improve to beat this field. I don't see why she couldn't do that. Her trainer, Barb Mitchell, doesn't run a lot of horses in New York, but she's very, very good, very underrated. And the few times that she has come to New York, her horses have run very well. So I can see Diamond Ore running well on this spot. The 2 is Coffee Bar. I thought this was the horse to beat in the race. She's not the morning line favorite. A New York bred for Todd Pletcher. Her debut was fine. They sprinted her first time out. She looked like she might have needed that race, and she also looked like a horse who doesn't really want to sprint. Her pedigree suggests she'll be better going longer, and her second start, she was better going longer. They stretched her out to a mile on January 10th right here at Aqueduct. And she ran well in that race, was, you know, kept much closer order to the pace that day, came right through on the inside on the turn, easily took over from the leader, drew clear through the stretch, won by over 8 lengths, 73 Beyer speed figure. I thought she ran really well in that race. I feel like there's just a lot to like about her. I feel like there's another step forward coming from her. And I think in a lot of ways, she's the horse to beat in here. Whether she goes favored or not remains to be seen. The 3 is Wonderwall. And I thought this was an interesting horse too. First 3 starts of her career, you can see for that $40,000 tag at Laurel. She's a Maryland bred, so she's eligible to run in those races without being claimed. So she wasn't really, offered up for the $40,000 in those races. She was, however, offered up for the 25 2 starts back, because at the end of the day, she just didn't run that well in the first 3 starts of her career. They dropped her in for 25 2 back on December 19th. She won that race very easily. It wasn't, the most, I don't want to say it was the most impressive win in the world. It was one of those races where the whole field fanned out at the top of the stretch. It felt like, 5 or 6 of them had a real shot to win it. It was Wonderwall who came through with the best finish and sort of pulled away late in there. But it wasn't, that kind of convincing 7 1/4 length victories. Let's just put it that way. Her connections did lose her for that 25. Claudio Gonzalez reached in and took her. And this filly stretched out and stepped up in class for her first start out of the Claudio Gonzalez barn. And this is what she did. This is a really impressive performance. So we have the replay right here. I thought she ran, I thought she took a huge step forward in this race. Sat back off the pace rating early on, but you could just tell from a long way out that she was traveling very strongly. It always looked like she was going to win. She came up 3 wide around that final turn and just ran right by the leaders to take over. You can just see her powering clear through the stretch. 75 by her speed figure, a huge step forward last time. That was a 2-turn race. Mile and 1/8 is a little different than a mile and a 16th, but I feel like based off that last race, this filly might be able to handle the added ground, and I feel like they're shipping in here to New York with a horse that is very, very eligible to win this race. We already touched on Traffic Lane a little bit. She's dangerous on the lead in here, I suppose. The 5 is The Grass is Blue. And listen, she's the morning line favorite. Not a horse that I was in love with before I saw the morning line. If she does indeed go off at that short of a price, I definitely am not in love with her in this race. Not that she can't win here. She did win the first 2 starts of her career sprinting. Debuted for 25 over the summer at Monmouth. Won very easily. Privately purchased out of that race. Turned over to Chad Brown, and she was good. First start for Chad Brown at Keeneland. Came from last, sprinting. Good finish down the outside. Ran that field over late to get clear. I guess a tougher spot at Keeneland at her next start against stakes horses, and never got involved last time. Let's take a look at that race. It's the first time they stretched out. There's another race at Laurel here. This is a stakes race, the Anne Arundel at Laurel, also a mile and a 16th, around 2 turns. And she's going to come up on the outside here in the stretch and, just sort of grind to the finish. You can see her there on just about even terms. Down past the 8th pole with the horse who winds up winning, Miss Leslie. And at the end of the day, The Grass is Blue just can't quite get there. Not a bad performance, but no real excuse for her. And as wide as she was at the top of the stretch, it's not like she got some kind of wide trip all the way around there. I actually felt like her rider, gave her a good ride in that race. Sort of stayed over towards the inside around the second turn. Only really took her to the far outside as they came to the stretch in there and gave her every chance to win. The Grass is Blue wasn't quite good enough. Not a poor performance, but not a great one either. As the morning line favorite, I would be against her. We can put the picks up there now because I'm going to take a shot with Wonderwall in here, the 3. Just was really taken by her last race. I know she's won 2 in a row by big margins, but it's really her last race. I feel like that signals a big step forward for her first start for Claudio Gonzalez. I'm not against the 2 Coffee Bar. I put her second. I think she's the horse to beat. But I want to try to take a little shot here with Wonderwall, especially if she's around that 5-1 morning line. I went 5/2 in Sunday's DRF race of the day. It's the Busanda at Aqueduct, race number 8, and it's a pretty good one. Short field, but a couple of pretty good fillies in this race. Approximate post time is 3:50 Eastern time. Good luck.